The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to the MusicMaster webinar. My name is Jill Sorensen. I'm the Product Support Manager. Today we are going to dig into the subject of audio setup, and we're going to spend the time looking at how all those different things work together within MusicMaster. Just want to remind everyone that this is a listen-only webinar. If you do have any questions, there is a questions box in your GoToWebinar panel. Go ahead and type in your question there, and we will go ahead and answer it that way. Keep in mind the webinars are recorded, so they are available on the website. If you've missed any in the past, those are available on the website, and you can also certainly go there and see the list of the upcoming ones, which we'll be adding to soon. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Aaron Taylor and everything you wanted to know about audio from our very own Professor Gadget. Aaron?
Thank you, Jill, and thank you everybody that's joined us here this afternoon, this morning, and this evening. What I'm going to do today is go over the various methods of connecting existing audio to MusicMaster for Windows, as well as other methods to integrate audio that you may want to bring into MusicMaster Windows, ways that you can rip audio into file folders that are on your local machine or on your network straight from MusicMaster. So existing audio tied into MusicMaster, as well as new audio tied into MusicMaster as well. And as I go through, I'll explain the different screens that I'm bringing up and how and where to access those and some of the options that are available to you as you move through the program and do the various configurations with these audio windows and configurations. I'm going to start off, first of all, by talking about a scenario, maybe not everyone's scenario, but a common scenario for most folks when they're already working with MusicMaster for Windows, automatically scheduling logs, perhaps exporting to a player device, but maybe have never thought about or gotten around to or been able to figure out exactly how to tie the existing audio that they already have into MusicMaster to either preview with, to edit with, or to just listen in real time to the way a playlist might sound before it actually airs. So we're going to go through all of those scenarios, but first of all I'm going to talk about the way to tie in existing audio with the assumption that we have an automation system or some sort of play-out device already in place. Typically the way that we would set this up with a client would be to create what we call a library synchronization definition file, which allows us to take a report from the automation player device, provided this is available to you. What you're able to do is run a complete library list or a filtered library list, if that's your preference, and then take that library list from your automation system and synchronize it directly with MusicMaster for Windows. So if you have any of the major automation devices and many other that are out of the market, we've probably already configured a library definition file for you. So we've done the hard work. Really all that needs to happen then is for us to set up your MusicMaster database so that the information that is in the file from your automation system is correctly mapped to MusicMaster Windows when it's brought in. So if we're going to do that from an existing automation system, we'll first of all want to choose what field we're going to want to bring that information into. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my library as it stands now. These are both just test databases, and we'll mess around with things here as we go along through the program. So what we're going to go do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring up the info bar, which brings up the list of categories that we have available to us in this database. We're going to display the library that I currently have listed in the database. I'm going to double-click on my Power A category here. You see I've got about 6 songs already in this database, and we're going to add to this perhaps as we go along. But what we're going to want to choose initially when we set this up is we're going to want to choose the field that we're going to want to put the file names for the audio into. This database, I've already configured that, but if you've not configured this previously, we're going to want to go ahead and set that up right from the start. So to go ahead and look to see what available fields we have for the setup, we'll want to go to Dataset, Library, and then Fields. And look at the available fields that we have available to us in MusicMaster currently. And what we're looking for is we're going to look for an available text field. Now you notice that I've already set these up, but what you'll want to look at in your database is either a field that's set as something that you're not using or plan to use in the future, as well as you may see something in your listing that says available. And we're looking specifically for a text field. That generally works best. So we look for that field, and then all we need to do to map this in and configure this for file names is go ahead and give it a name that's going to make sense to you. And in my particular instance here, I've named this file name. Straightforward. You can name this again whatever you like. Again, we're looking for a text field. We're looking for an available field that we're not using for some other data purposes at the current point. And again, to access that, that's Dataset, Library, and then Fields. Once we've decided what that field is, we're going to want to do a little bit of setup in MusicMaster to make the audio be able to be set up so that we can play it through the program. And we're going to go ahead then next, once we've found our field, is we're going to go ahead and go to Tools and Options. That's going to take a second here to come up. And we're going to specifically go then into Audio File Options. And there's going to be 4 or 5 different windows here that we're going to go ahead and configure as we set up. Now, first of all, what we're going to probably want to look at here is we're going to think about, again, where our current audio exists. If it exists on our automation system, on a network drive, or if it references locally, we're going to want to look then at the first line here, which is audio file name location, and key in the information that corresponds to the resource that the audio files can be found in or on. And in my case, for this particular example, I have them residing locally in my CMMWin 4.0 directory. So that is where my local audio files reside. And just to show you here, I'll just give you just a little snapshot of what I've got set up. Again, in my CMMWin 4.0 directory, I have a bunch of MP3 files that I've already ripped in for the process. Now, obviously, you may have one big file on your local hard drive that has this. You may also have, on your network, you might have several other file folders and drives that the audio is referenced from. And we'll talk about that here in just a moment. The next part of our file name location setup is the field that we're referencing. Now, remember when I went through Dataset, Library, Fields, and I sourced a field that I could put this information into. So this is going to be my file name field, which corresponds to field number 102 in the database. So if I've not already made note of what that is, or I want to go through and put it in without having to key in at field 102, which again references the field that we're looking at here, I can click on the drop-down in the right-hand corner and select file name. And it will then automatically bring in at field 102. So that's another option for us as well here. Then the next part is the native file formats that we're going to be working with when we play the audio out from MusicMaster. And in my particular instance, I'm working with MP3 files and WAV files. Now, an important point to note here that we'll want to talk about is the fact that MusicMaster Windows will allow you to play files that are native to Windows Media Player. So if it's an MP3 file, MP2, wave files, anything that can be played via the Windows Media Player. It can be played natively through MusicMaster Windows. And we'll bring up the internal player here just in a moment so you can see how that looks and how that works as we go a little bit further along. And so again, I have MP3s and wave files that I'm working with. Now, a couple different ways that you can do this. We can go ahead and just put straight into the audio file name location .mp3 or .wave if that's all we're ever working with. So we can actually replace this portion with just .mp3 or .wave. The other way that we could do this in our file name portion of the setup is we could list the title or artist .mp3 or .wave straight in the file name and not list anything in here at all, and MusicMaster Windows will be able to pick that up and key off of that and play the audio just as well in that particular method. Other things that we can do in the setup here, again, I talked about a lot of people that have automation systems where they have multiple versions of file folders that have multiple different wave files or MP3 files in. We can handle that with what we call the auto path field, which will allow us then to set up a file name location that will look to all the files and look to all of the folders where the audio resides. And if we wanted to set up an auto path, I'm going to go ahead and bring up a little PDF here that I've created so you can see how that would look and talk about that scenario. So again, we're looking at the C drive. This could be the N drive or the R drive, whatever your network drive is, and then at auto path, and then the field part, which is the file name again, .mp3. But what I'm doing here differently is I'm actually telling MusicMaster to search out on my C drive or my N drive to the CHR folder, to the Hot AC folder, to the country folder to try to source that audio. So I don't have to specifically just say in the file name location, look to this one place, because the audio may be in a bunch of different places. So that's the other way that I can do that. And getting back to auto extension, let me show you that one as well, since we talked about that scenario. Again, my network drive, the folder that it's in, the field that the audio file is in, and then the auto extension portion here at auto extension, which then I put the information in for the different file types that I might be working with, whether it's WAV files, MP2s, MP3s, whatever they are, so that it knows to look to any of those when it goes out and looks for the audio to play. So I'm going to go ahead and close those and go back to our original option here, and I'll talk about the other setups here that relate to audio as well that we'll want to talk about and you'll want to set up if this is something that you want to use in your version of MusicMaster Windows. External audio player application. I'm going to show you another version of this database here in a bit that I'm working with iTunes. And you may have heard earlier that I mentioned that MusicMaster could only natively play MP3s, MP2s, WAV files. What you can do, and I'll show you this and demonstrate it here in a bit, I've got a database that's set up that is bringing in and synchronizing with my iTunes. It actually is using a iTunes exe to source the audio from. And we'll be able to play that audio in a different method from within MusicMaster Windows using an external audio player. So if you decide you want to do that, whether it's Winamp or it's iTunes or some other proprietary player that will play your files, you'll want to go into External Audio Player application and configure that. Click in the square with the three dots here and find the executable for the player device that you want to work with. Next on the list is External Audio Editor application. A lot of folks that have automation systems may not find any functionality to this because they're already ripping the tunes in their automation system and editing the tunes, trimming the tops and tails out from inside the automation system. But if you don't have that option or you want to be able to do this within MusicMaster, you're able to do that with an external audio editor application. I'll bring up both of these and show you as we go along through the process here. But again, it's just a matter of sourcing it out to where the executable for the audio editor device is and configuring it, applying it, and then you're good to go. We'll talk about where that is here in just a moment. So that is the configuration for the audio setup. There is one other place that I want to show you audio setup here that relates to the way the audio plays, and that's going to be under Additional Properties. And right at the top, you'll see a section called Audio. And what this will allow you to do, and I'll specifically talk about these three here, Scope End, Scope Fade, and Scope Start. Scope End will allow you to put in a number here which will designate the length of the song outro that you want to play. So if you want to play the last 10 seconds of the song as it fades, when you're listening to it, you would go through here and put in 10 or 15 seconds or 30, whatever you want to have it play, the total you want it to play at the end. This is the number you put in place. And that's going to work across the board for any songs that are played through our native player. Scope Fade, the amount of time that the song would take to fade. So if you want a quick fade or a long fade, you would change that number accordingly. And then Scope Start, the intro, if you want 10 seconds of intro or 15 seconds of intro, whatever you want it to play the start of the song, that would be what you put in Scope Start. And we'll talk about those specifics. These have functionality in the schedule editor, and that can allow you to listen to a playlist in real time and listen from song to song through the entire hour or the entire day if you wish. Listen to the ends and the starts of each song in the playlist. So again, to get to this window, it's Tools, Options, and then specifically Audio File Options, and then secondarily Additional Properties for the audio playout device. So that's where the configuration happens. So if we've gone through and set all this up and we've got the file name field configured, one of the ways, again, getting back to the very beginning that we might do this is use our library synchronization from our automation system. And simply that would be contacting your music scheduling consultant for a automation library synchronization definition file. That would be configured and put into your MusicMaster Windows directory. Dataset, library, and synchronize will be the place that you'll access that. And I've got a bunch of different ones in here, and we'll go through and talk about those as we go along. So the very simplest way to do this then would be to perhaps use a library synchronization. Let's use the Prophet system as an example perhaps. We'd run a Prophet library report that would generate all of our available titles in Prophet. We may want to set this up so that it not only brings in new titles from Prophet as part of our library synchronization process, but in this particular instance, as we're moving forward, because we want to be able to source audio straight from MusicMaster Windows, we may want to set up the update command that will allow the Prophet system to bring in the file name information directly into MusicMaster into field 102. And once we run the selected synchronization for that, and we run the report in Prophet, it would go through and not only bring in new titles to MusicMaster, but populate the file name field with the artist and title information that comes from your automation system. So that could be a very quick way to go ahead and set up the audio playout in your MusicMaster database if you already have existing WAV or MP3 files on your network for your automation system. Again, keeping in mind that they must be native to Windows Media Player to be able to be played out. One thing that we talked about when we were at Tools and Options, and we set up our audio file options under audio file name location. If you're not absolutely certain that this is in fact the right way to set this up, and you go through and you set up what you think is correct, then you go into MusicMaster Windows and try to play the audio and you don't get any results. Well, there's a really great tool that MusicMaster Windows has for you that can tell you for the existing library that's set up now whether or not you've sourced your audio correctly. And that is accessed at Library, Audio, and Verify. So if we click on that, it's going to look at the library as it exists now. It's going to, again, reference the audio file name path that I've set up, and it's going to look at auto extension, so it's going to look at the MP3s and the WAV files that exist in this place and make sure that all of these files exist and, in fact, can be played. And I can run this at any point in time. And this may be something that, as you're setting this up or working with your music scheduling consultant, that you'll want to go back and forth a couple of times for and review the report that I'm about to generate and look to see if there are any discrepancies in this report. So basically what it's telling me here is all the songs that I have in my hot category. There are 6 of total. Only 1 right now is not a valid audio source, and that's because I have not actually ripped that file in place. But it's looking for that particular WAV file in that particular place, and it doesn't exist, which I know at this point. But again, that may be a great way right off the bat to know whether or not you set this up correctly. So let's say, for example, that I've gone ahead and synchronized the database from my automation system at this point, and I've got this list of songs at this moment, and I've done the verify process, and I know I'm only missing 1. I want to play them now. I want to listen and, you know, see how this all works. So you'll want to go ahead and reference the MusicMaster audio player, which is under View, and then Audio Player. Now, I'll point out that it doesn't necessarily need to be brought up for the audio to play if you've configured it correctly. But just from a standpoint of knowing that it's actually playing and being able to see artist and title perhaps, it might be a good idea to go ahead and bring it up. So we're going to go ahead again, View Audio Player, which brings this up at the top. Like many windows in MusicMaster that you're familiar with, you can move this around into any place that you want it. You can stretch it, you can make it smaller. Again, you can hide it if you want. So whatever you want it to look like, you can go ahead and configure it to however you wish. To play MusicMaster, to play audio from MusicMaster, the keys that you need to remember, if you're looking at a MusicMaster library maintenance list, for example, is F12, your F12 key. So if we go ahead and hit F12 in the database, that's going to go ahead and that will play out your audio. So F12 starts the audio, and the Control F12 key would stop the audio in the database. The other way that we can go ahead and do this is we can right-click in the margin on the pointer bar and go to Audio, play this song, or we can right-click right in the log itself or in the library maintenance field itself and click on Audio and play this song. And that will also play the audio. What I'm going to do here really quickly, since we did some configuration changes to this particular database, I'm going to go ahead and reopen this MusicMaster database really quickly, and we'll go ahead and play the audio for this particular database in this particular category. So it's going to go ahead and I'm going to refresh the information that I just changed. I'm going to call up again my power category. I'm going to click on View, and I'm going to bring up my audio player so we can see it, and then I'm going to hit F12. And then it will go ahead and play the audio. And for some reason here that is, there we go. So F12 starts it, and then Control F12 will stop the audio. So again, F12 to start it, Control F12 to stop it. Or I can go ahead and I can click on Audio, play this song. So those are the ways that you can go ahead basically and start or stop audio. The same methodology can be used in the playlist, clicking on a song and then clicking F12 to play it, or right-clicking and clicking the audio bar on the left-hand side. You'll notice when you click on the left-hand side on this particular menu in the schedule editor, not only do you have the option of playing the song, you have the option in here of play to the next song element, play all remaining songs, scope to the next song element, scope all remaining songs, intro, outro seg. So lots of different choices that you have here. If you just want to hear the first 10 seconds of the song, you can go ahead and do that from here. So we'll go ahead and close that back out again. And so that is, again, F12, and Control F12 to close that out. Other places in MusicMaster, there's a ton of places that you can actually play audio from. And just, again, Schedule Editor, which we've already talked about, library maintenance. There are certain places in clocks, in packets, and also in the artist keyword list where you can also play audio. There's actually about 20 some odd places within MusicMaster where you can source audio from once you've set it up. Now we've kind of talked about the scenario of using existing audio that is already on our automation system. But let's talk about perhaps we have audio that we want to get into MusicMaster that doesn't already exist either on our automation system or on our local hard drive. MusicMaster Windows has an audio ripper that we can access. And that is utilized by going to Tools and Import CD Audio. I have a CD in my D drive here of my computer that is going to load here in just a second. It's a U2 Greatest Hits CD. Right now, the CD audio import is not locating the artist and title information. We use a program called FreeDDB that goes out to the internet and allows us to get that information straight into MusicMaster. I'm going to go ahead and click on the box for Read Disk. And what it's done now is it's gone out to FreeDDB and it's brought in the metadata from the U2 CD that I have in my drive now. So say, for example, you noticed as we went through this audio verify process at the start that Pride in the Name of Love was missing the audio. It's because I hadn't ripped the audio in yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in just a moment. First of all, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to talk about the setup in the CD audio import. I'm going to go ahead and click on Setup. And real straightforward stuff here, basically the drive that we're referencing, the audio file format that we want to rip into, if we want it to be stereo, the bit rate that we want to use, the frequency we want to use, and then the place that we want the file to be ripped to. And in this case, I'm using my CMMWin 4.0 directory to rip the audio into. So that's already been configured. The first time you do this, you'll want to go through and look at these. There are some defaults that will come up, but you will want to go through and make sure that you have the correct audio file format as well as the correct bit rate for your station or for the process that you're working with. Again, the only song that I want to work with here or that I want to rip today is going to be the Pride in the Name of Love U2 song. So I'm going to go through and unselect everything else and just have it rip Pride in the Name of Love. And so then I'm going to go ahead and simply go ahead and rip track. I'm going to rip track number 3. And it's going to go through the process here and rip the audio in. And as soon as the audio has been ripped in and placed into my CMMWin 4.0 directory, it's going to allow me then to do some mapping of the audio information, the metadata information, and ask me where I want to put it into MusicMaster. So as soon as this finishes here, we're going to go look at import song information. So the ripping now is complete. So then what I'll want to go ahead and do is I'll want to go ahead and go to the tab that says Import Song Information. And as you see, I've already got a lot of this information that's been brought in here. What we do on the second portion of this, once we've actually ripped the track, we tell it where we want each piece of this information to go. So the target information is the information that's being brought from the CD. The source is the field that we want it to go to into MusicMaster. So in this case, obviously, I'm taking the artist to the artist field in MusicMaster, title to title, album to album, so on and so on, as well as anything else that I might want to have populate into MusicMaster. As you see, I've got other information that I may be able to bring in here. The only fields that I've currently got set up here that I can bring in are these 6 fields. And then the only other field that might be helpful in this particular scenario, when we're ripping audio directly from MusicMaster and into the database, would be the file base field. And this is where the artist and title information comes in. And what we can do here is we can look at the different methodologies here that that will bring the audio in. So file base is what I've got it set now, which just basically gives me the artist space dash space and then the title. It doesn't bring in the .wav or any file extension because I'm handling that in the tools option portion. But if I needed that, I can go ahead and I can click on file path and then configure that, and it's going to give me any number of other information that I want to have come out. So in this case, again, it's tagging it with the MP3 at the end. So I'm going to go ahead then and I'm going to take this back to file base, and I'm going to go ahead and just click it, and now it's just going to bring in artist and title. If I'm happy with this, I can go ahead and leave it at this. One other really cool thing that I can do is if I want to designate the category that it goes to, what it's actually going to do at this point is if I go ahead and click import, it's going to automatically take this new song or songs into the field called new. But if I want to have it automatically go into the power category, as an example, I can go ahead and do that by clicking on category, and then I can go through and I can actually tell it which field I want to work with for it to actually go into. So I could actually go to user data, and I could go in here and say I want it to go to category A. So it's going to go ahead and reference that. The other way that I could actually do this is I could actually, again, designate the target as category, leave the source field blank, and use the script field here and type in quotation A quotation, and it's going to go ahead and put it into that category. So I'm going to go ahead now and say that I want the Pride in the Name of Love to go into the A. It already is in the A category, but we'll make sure that it's going to go through here when we do this. So now it's telling me there is one available song to import. Would I like to continue? I'll say yes. And now I can close my CD audio import. And now the rest of the information is into the database as well as the actual audio. So now I'm going to actually be able to play the U2 song from the database because it exists in my CMMWin 4.0 directory. So that's the way that works. Other really neat things that we can do that kind of tie into working with audio and multimedia within MusicMaster Windows, this is another way that we can actually play audio in MusicMaster, is using external fields. Let's get back again to data set library fields, and let's look for a couple of other text fields. And again, your database may have many additional available fields. You may want to contact your MusicMaster scheduling consultant to add a couple of extra text fields for you. But I have a field called WebLink 1, also website and WebLink 2. These are just strict text fields, and I can name these whatever I want. Once I've gone through and configured those and added those to my display in Show Hide Fields in the Edit Grid layout, I could go through and put those into my display and key in other data on the artist. So maybe I want to do show prep in the studio, and I want to have the artist's website displayed straight within MusicMaster. So as I'm editing, I can call up information and get it, details about the tour or when the album is released. All I have to do then is go into my website field, copy and paste that information in for the website, right-click, and go to External Link. And this is going to use the MusicMaster internal browser. This is really a cool thing. It's going to go out to the Internet, and it's going to now, because I've used Mariah Carey's website as my starting point, bring up her website and display the information that's on the page. And I can actually go through there and click on any of the hyperlinks just like I could as if I was in a native Firefox or Internet Explorer browser. And as you noticed, when I right-clicked on this, I can actually use an external default application. So if I wanted to use Firefox or I wanted to use Explorer, I could also do that. I can also access not only websites, but I can access video if I wish. I'm using YouTube as an example here. So here, it'll take just a second to go ahead and do this, but I can go ahead and stream straight from MusicMaster in the internal browser the Mariah Carey video for someday. I can have as many additional sources of information. I've got two versions, for example, of the Sheryl Crow video here that I can play for a change that would do you good. And again, all I'm doing is right-clicking, external link, and view internal browser. And it'll pop up, go to the Internet, and bring up that content. And you've just got to go through and copy and paste that information in. So really cool thing to do, really easy setup. So that's all there is to that. So as far as taking audio into MusicMaster from two common scenarios, automation, library synchronization process, we've talked about how that's set up. We've also talked about ripping audio directly into MusicMaster from the program. Now let's talk about some of the other sources. And again, we've done most of the hard work for you here on most of the major vendors that source audio to radio stations or other media companies. And I'm going to go ahead and look at a couple of these with you here now. I'm going to go through and look at some of the leaders that work with content that maybe some of you are familiar with, maybe some of you are not, but basically show you how simple it is to take the audio from these distribution sites into MusicMaster Windows. And finally then, we're also going to look at iTunes and talk about how that works. So one of the vendors that we work with that provides audio to media sources would be Play MPE. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up my Play MPE folder. Many folks here that are listening may be familiar with this, maybe you're not. This is a way for the record companies to distribute content to media sources in a secure and encrypted way. So here is my library on Play MPE. Say I want to go ahead and I want to bring in some new songs from Play MPE, bring them into the format that MusicMaster can work with, which is going to be a WAV file or an MP3 format, and then also take the metadata that's coming from this song and bring it straight into MusicMaster, so I don't have to key all that information in. So let's say as my example here, I'm going to go ahead and bring this John Rich, Shutting Detroit Down, in as an example. So I've already drugged this over. It's just a left click and drag and drop into the Play Burn export window into Play MPE. I'm going to go ahead then and export this track into MusicMaster with a library synchronization that we've set up. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Export Track. And so it's gone out here and looked for the track. It's bringing me a configuration window. And again, I can configure this for whatever I want to work with here. In my case, for MusicMaster purposes, I'm going to either want a WAV file or an MP2 format, but it's got bit rate, and then it's got the place that I want to dump the file to. So again, it's CMMWin 4.0, which is where I've got the audio now. I'm going to export the track information, and again, I can decide to click this or not click this. And then I've got other formats for the metadata. For MusicMaster Windows, we've already got a box here that is going to take a file called an ASC file and dump that also into our CMMWin directory. So I've clicked on that, and then I'm going to go ahead and export the John Rich song straight into my MusicMaster Windows 4.0 directory. So we'll go through and let it finish this, and then we'll jump back into MusicMaster and show you how this is brought in. And again, this is configured with a Play MPE library synchronization file that we can provide to clients with, if you've got a MusicMaster scheduling consultant that you're working with. They can easily set this up for your database and help you do this very same process to start getting your new ads straight into MusicMaster from this distribution site. So I'm going to go back now into my database that we're working with, and I'm going to bring that new John Rich song into the new category into MusicMaster. So I'm going to go ahead now and go to Dataset, Library, again go to Synchronize, and instead of using my automation system update, I'm going to use my Play MPE import. So I'm going to go ahead and run this now. And this is only going to bring in one song in this particular process, but it's gone through and looked at the list that's in that directory, and it's found one new song with information in. I'm going to go now to my new directory, and there's the song. And I can also go ahead straight from this directory then and play the audio if I want to as well. And it's also brought in the metadata, it's brought in the runtime, it's brought in the year, it's brought in the album information, other fields that I'm not showing right now. But basically, it's already brought in all the other information that exists in the track within Play MPE. So that's all I have to do there. One of the other methodologies and one of the other distribution sites that you may be familiar with that we also work with is called DMDS. So let me show you DMDS, what that actually looks like. So I'll bring that up, and the way that works, that actually is automatically set up. Here's my DMDS folder for that. What that actually does is when the song is ripped in to the folder where your DMDS files reside, it also creates a .xml file. And here are all the XML files with the metadata for the songs that I have in my library. So once again, I go to Dataset, Library, and I go to Synchronize, and I'm going to use my DMDS5 import. It's going to work the exact same way that the process that I just worked with PlayMPE does. It's going to go ahead and dump the new songs into my new category, or whatever category I designate, and bring the metadata in. Then all I need to do is go ahead and put it in the category and review the audio. Now, say, for example, if I wanted to actually edit this audio, because maybe there's some silence at the beginning of the song, for example, I can go ahead and do that with the MusicMaster internal, well, actually with a external audio editing application. We talked about that at the beginning where we configured that in Tools and Options. So I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to the Editor option here. I'm going to actually click on the John Rich song, and I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to Edit Audio File. And it's going to take just a second. Now, you recall from the beginning here, I had this mapped to a free program that I'm using called Audacity. It's going to go through, and again, you can use whatever program you wish, obviously, to edit the audio. And here is the WAV file for the John Rich song. So now I can go through and right from MusicMaster, go in and do whatever I need to do here to make the audio right, save it, go ahead and go back out of it, and I'm still in MusicMaster Windows. So really handy to be able to not have to go out of the program and do that sort of function. So again, that's just Tools and Edit Audio File. Again, you do have to configure it, but all you've got to do then is then click on that, and it'll bring the audio up from there. So again, Dataset Library Synchronization with DMDS. There's probably lots of other ones out there that, in many countries that do the same thing. The bottom line to remember about this is pretty much either we've already gone ahead and done the hard work for you, getting the specs from the vendors, and can provide you with a template, or we're very easily able to work with any distribution vendor to work with the file that they're able to put out and then library synchronize into your MusicMaster Windows database. So you may want to contact your MusicMaster scheduling consultant if you have specific distribution sites that you want to work with to be able to source audio straight into MusicMaster for. Last one that I want to show you here today is I want to show you how to synchronize with iTunes and kind of go through the whole process of how you can actually do the process of getting audio out of iTunes into MusicMaster, and then if you want to then take that iTunes information, automatically schedule it in MusicMaster Windows, and export a playlist back out to iTunes that can be played. Our understanding is there actually are some folks that are using the iTunes player as their method of playing audio out to their streams or their terrestrial stations. So I'll go ahead and just go through that scenario here as well. I'm going to go ahead and close this database, and I'm going to go ahead and open up another database. This is the iTunes database that I've set up specifically for this process. Going to go ahead and configure a couple of windows that we had set up in the previous here. Going to go ahead and bring up my audio player, and also going to go ahead and bring up my info bar, which will show you the song list. So I'm going to double click now on my new song list, and I'll cross-reference this here with my MusicMaster, with my iTunes library here for you in just a second. So what I've actually already done here in advance is I've gone through my iTunes, which I'll bring up here and show you now. As it decides to go ahead and display here. So here's my iTunes, and here is my library. Many of you are probably familiar with this program. But what I'll go ahead and do, and what I can do, is again, this comes into working with the library synchronization again. I can go ahead and take my entire iTunes music universe, go to File, Library, and Export Library. That's going to go ahead and take an XML file, again, of everything that's in my iTunes library. I go ahead and take this library XML file to a place on my network or on my machine that I can work with, And so then I go back into my iTunes database. I go to Dataset, I go to Library, and I go to Synchronize, and I go to iTunes Library Import. And so what that's going to do then is it's going to look to anything new that I've added to iTunes and fill in any new information that needs to be updated straight into my MusicMaster database. So that's how that works. So again, it's another library import process just like the previous that we've done. So then it brings my data into MusicMaster. I've actually automatically already scheduled a day. I've scheduled today's date in this particular database. So here is today's date from my iTunes, which I've synchronized already in. Here is today's playlist. Then I go ahead and go to Dataset, Export, Export to Automation. I've got a iTunes export definition file, which many of you probably are familiar with schedule and export. Put the date in. It's already going out to my CMM-Win directory, which is where iTunes is actually sourcing it from, a little bit different than my CMM-Win 4.0 directory. Once I've sent that out, I'll go ahead and send that out. Then I'll go back into iTunes, and I can go to File, Library, Import Playlist, and it will go out then to the MM-Win directory and bring in 415, which is the date for today, and load in the playlist. So you see here is the playlist. Jingle Bells is the first song, Heaven for the Weather, which is the exact same playlist that I have in MusicMaster. So again, that is the way that we do that. Now, we talked about at the very beginning how we have native files that can be played in MusicMaster's playout device, but we also have the option of setting up the MusicMaster configuration to use an external device. And in this case, I have to use iTunes. So I'm going to go to Tools, and then I'm going to go to the Audio File Options, and you see here I've got my iTunes executable set up for the external player device. So instead now of playing from the MusicMaster Windows Media Player, I'm going to use on my protected AAC audio files, the files that are native iTunes files. I'm going to actually go through and use the alternative player device. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on Alt, the Alt key, and then the F12 key, which will then play the audio from the iTunes device. So again, that's Alt and then F12, which will then launch the iTunes player to play the audio from. So Alt, F12. So hopefully this was I know there's an awful lot of information here, and there's a lot of things that need to be configured, but hopefully this gives you a good overview of the way you can play audio from MusicMaster Windows, as well as some of the other interfaces that are available to you to allow you to bring other sources of media into MusicMaster Windows and actually interface with other products. And again, if you have specific questions about the resources that you're working with, the automation systems that you're working with, the audio files that you're working with or would like to work with, and if you've seen something here today that you want to start utilizing right away, I would encourage you to get in touch with your MusicMaster scheduling consultant to get more information about how you can get some of this set up. And I thank you very much for your time today. And at this point, I want to send things back to Jill Sorensen.
Thank you very much, Aaron. What a terrific session. I said we were going to dig into audio, and didn't he deliver? And this is now why you all know why we call him our very own Professor Gadget. Thanks so much, Aaron. Just want to remind everyone, next week coming up, Marianne Burkett will be here, and she is going to be doing something that maybe many of you have already had to do and maybe will do in the future. It's about taking a database that you've inherited, and now you have to put your spin and your programming goals and your objectives into that database. So how do you take an existing database and move it so that it's doing what you need it to do. That's what we'll be doing next week. Please remember, if you have any questions, we are here to help. As Aaron pointed out, you can contact your music scheduling consultant for direct assistance on any questions you have, whether it's on the audio presentation you heard today or any other questions you have with MusicMaster. Thank you so much for coming and watching our session today. We will be uploading this session to our website later today. So that will be available if you have other people in your building who might be of interest in watching it. And we will be updating the list of future webinars as well. Remember, there's no charge to watch these, just have to register in advance. Thank you all, and have a wonderful afternoon.